Welcome back to Senate Education, Friday, April 22nd, 3:33. We're now moving on to H456. We've reviewed this bill a number of times, and although I think we may make one small change to it before it leaves here, we also have a proposal of amendment to H456 from Senator Perchley. And that's what we want to spend the next 15 minutes or 10-15 minutes on, and then we'll close the day hearing from the Agency of Education briefly on H703. So with that, Senator Perchley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment, I don't know if it's posted yet.
Yeah, it is posted.
And maybe, I don't know if it's possible, if it would be posted, is it going to be posted under H456? I just don't want people to be confused about the 248 alternative language title.
Under 456. Do you have it already?
456. Yeah, I'll change it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's currently under 248.
So I can cross that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's 248 for all intents and purposes. I mean, it can't move. I mean,
Right.
without rules,
Right.
changes, all sorts of things, which is highly unlikely. So the vehicle for this would be one of the possible vehicles would be 456.
and what Ledge Council St. James did was take 248, since it's the same thing as my amendment, and just use that structure to show the differences of 248, or not to show the difference of 248, but to show the changes to those, the composition of the board of the state colleges and the composition of the board of UVM.
Got it.
So the goal overall of this amendment is to add one voting member from the faculty or staff of each of those two institutions. So section 1, the first part of the bill deals with the State Colleges Corporation. And one other thing, instead of just adding one voting member, that's the faculty or staff, I assumed there was an interest to keep it an odd number. I don't know. You don't always have to do that. I mean, my guess is they don't have a lot of split votes.
That's an interesting point.
So if somebody thinks we don't need the other one, but I was under that premise that we should keep it as an odd number. So that's why it says from 15 to 17 is the change.
Mhm.
And then down on line 14, it's 2 trustees shall be a student, because I'm adding a student to the Vermont College Board, or not, I'm proposing this amendment to do so.
So there isn't a student on that now.
There is one student,
Okay.
so that's the change you'll see on line 14.
Senator
Two.
Kernstein, you want to jump in and just?
So there's already one student, so this isn't 2 additional students.
No.
This is 1 student and 1 faculty for a total of 2 more,
Yeah,
and that's from 15 to 17.
right. So it goes from 1 to 2 students.
And that's UVM or that's the
This is
state?
state college.
State colleges, okay.
It says there at the top.
Oh, thank you.
State college. And then,
Right.
the,
We are,
We-
thank you.
we're going. The reason I picked a student to keep this odd number on the total is the UVM board has 2 students. And
Okay,
one thing that I don't think I had Ms. St. James do is UVM has a graduate and an undergraduate, and they're staggered. I can't remember if we did that here, but I think that at least making sure the 2 are staggered, so you don't get 2 new each time, would make sense. So you always have 1 new student, 1 student that's been there. It's whatever their terms are. So that's just something to think about. So at the bottom of page 2, line 16 to 21, is the language that there'll be 1 trustee shall be a faculty or staff. And then it said faculty or staff, because my understanding is staff is kind of a broad term. This could even be, sometimes a faculty member might be a staff member 1 year because they're administration.
yeah,
And maybe the faculty really likes the janitor, or wants to elect
Yeah.
them, so that's fine. So to be elected by the faculty. I mean, this is faculty and staff, but what I was thinking was whatever, I wasn't sure at Vermont State Colleges how the faculty assembly works, but I assumed it would be the faculty assembly.
They have.
They don't have an assembly? Okay. So I'm not sure I thought they had some kind
And
of.
the state colleges?
They don't-
Uh,
Because they're all
that was
split
the-
out.
That was the
You have
argument
CCD.
about having UVM and the state colleges come together to learn from
Right.
what UVM does.
So,
Yes,
Well,
so
we'll hear from them.
This
on Tuesday.
doesn't
I'm sure they're gonna want to weigh in. Yeah.
so this is faculty and staff. So we might want to tweak that language a little bit based on Vermont State Colleges not having a assembly of which would process the vote. So something to think about there.
yeah, I'm not, you know, like I said, I don't know exactly what their structure is, but
Yeah.
it was my understanding that that was part of the need for better communication.
Senator,
Well, I'm with you. I do have some things to say, but you want to walk through the UVM part 2 first?
Yeah. On the top of page 3, don't remember why we needed to add in student appointment. I assume just maybe it said appointment and so we have to say appointments.
okay,
And
and we'll have that.
yeah,
be
so I
this
think that's
Tuesday.
just clarifying language, I'm pretty sure for that we're adding a student. So the UVM is similar, adding 2 to keep it an odd number. There was 25, this makes it 27. 1 faculty or staff elected by the faculty senate. And then they already had 2 students, so instead of adding a 3rd student, adding 1 more board member, that's the
Perpetuate.
perpetuating. Or, so right now, there's 9 that are elected by the legislature, and there's 9 that are self-perpetuating. Basically, they elect their own member. So this would make it 10 self-replicating.
Self-replicating. Yes.
Self-replicating, I keep
I
saying.
told you.
Right.
So that's the overall thing. So each board gets 2 new members. Both of those 2 members are voting. For the state colleges, it's the faculty or staff and the student. For UVM, it's the faculty or staff and self-perpetuating.
And the self-perpetuating comes from the school itself? Or is that
Or from the board.
From the board.
So like the board just can elect
Oh, so
their
you're
own
just
person.
adding, okay. Senator Chindo.
I want to say a few things. One, just my good friend Wendy Koenig, this is the first time I've seen this language. And what I did, since I'm a UVM employee, I committed to the leadership there that before I put my name on, signed on to, or supported legislation, I'd always ask their opinion first. And so I look forward to hearing from Wendy Koenig on this. I hope that's the case. But I will say my initial reaction is, one, I'd love to hear more from Senator Hooker on VSC, but on the UVM part, I would support this language. I think it's great that there's a self-perpetuating trustee proposed. I think that's really important for the way the university functions. And I think those are really valuable board members for the stability and the advancement of the university. As for the faculty or staff member, I support that as well. And I just want to articulate why I think academia is different and distinct from other organizations. In academia, faculty have primacy over the curriculum in the classroom. And it's important to shield and protect that primacy. Academic freedom is something that's essential to protect from public or private influences. And I think having the faculty voice on the board is something that I can support. I like that the faculty senate is the one that would oversee the elections. The one comment I have that I might revise this based on being a faculty at the University of Vermont, on page 7 on line 4, again, this is the first time I've seen this language. It says for faculty, I can see why the drafter suggested the last day of February, because that's what it is for students. I would suggest a much better approach would be to have that start at the beginning of the next school year,
Yeah.
choose August 1st. There are workload implications to be elected to this and to tie it into, if it was elections happened in February or January, that would factor into their workload in the coming years, or I'd want it to, and so I wouldn't want it to take effect. And their first board meeting is usually late August, so having it be July 1st or August 1st would fit better with the cycle of the university. With that, again, I do want to hear from Wendy Koenig. I hope that's part of the.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that if, I'm sure, I don't know if it'll be Ms. Koenig. I did hear that, I don't know who the chair of the board is, but I did receive a message that the chair of the UVM board would like to weigh in on this. I don't know when. I don't know who it is. You?
Ron Lumber.
Okay. So, if I may, just a quick question. Do people, actually, no, this would be the first time I've cancel that. Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, will we be able to hear about the role and obligation for trustees on the board? I mean, it is a different role from being a faculty member. It's a fiduciary responsibility to the institution. So I'm just wondering if we will be able to see what language, if any, exists in statute that describes the responsibility, the issues around conflict of interest and so on related to a board member who is coming from those employed by the institution.
So yeah, we will, and if, we'll direct those questions, to you. I think the other thing I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, Senator Perschlick, to do is to check in with Senator White and see as soon as possible, today, actually, if you wanted to run down there now, is she going to want and require to see this? It really is her jurisdiction.
Yep.
And that would really help us in terms of timing with other bills.
I have talked to her.
Oh.
She knows the general idea,
Okay.
but I will.
Yeah.
Specific.
Just if they really, if they want this bill in, I would think they're gonna want it. And just in terms of timing, because 456, again, if UVM, the president of the board wants to weigh in, I think they were talking about Wednesday, this would still leave Wednesday. If you could just check with Senator White on that today, that would be great. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can I respond to Senator Lyon?
Yeah, please.
The way I looked at that, there's conflict of interest procedures for the boards, and so that those would apply to the faculty or staff members as well as to the students.
Yeah.
Students can say they have a conflict of interest. The president of the UVM is on the board,
The provost.
so I'm sure they have.
And if it
Issues
says
on
staff, it could be an administrative position. Right.
Right. And there would, though, I think there's potential conflicts of interest for any of the board members. So I think if there's ways of dealing with that, I don't think that one faculty member is going to influence. And I've heard that the colleges, or at least UVM, is concerned that if they're in negotiation about an executive session about like teacher pay, that they would have to recuse themselves. But I don't think that's true. It's just like, if they're talking about building a new dorm and you're a landlord in Burlington, you have to recuse yourself because of the conflict of interest. Or maybe they think as the faculty is electing that person, that they need to represent the first people that elected them too. But if we need language to make that clear, that the election isn't so that they can represent that group, that they will be working for the university, but they will just happen to be a faculty.
I mean, yes,
diverse
yeah.
board.
I understand that. I just want to know if there's any statutory language that talks about that. And, because faculty are so deeply embedded in their own curricular and academic activities. If you're a philosophy professor or you're a chemistry professor and the decision is to remove that department for financial reasons, then you are not representing your position. You're representing the interest of the college.
And we heard that from the faculty, the professor who's on the Cornell board,
Yeah,
that she understands that she's there as watching over the institution, not just the faculty, not just.
And I think that's why the faculty senate is good, because they'll think like, we don't want to elect somebody that's just going to be looking at the
Exactly.
philosophy department. They want somebody that's
Right.
Yeah.
protect the whole institution.
And it gives a different perspective, I think, for somebody who's, on the ground. And I know we've had emails from former faculty members who have said, I wish that there was more of a voice for people to know, because especially, one of the things that I've heard about the Vermont State College system is that the board members rarely, if ever, visit the other campuses, the campuses. So how do you know what's going on? And that's the type of thing that a faculty or staff member, right? Having,
I just wanted to thank them for the 60 phone calls and emails that I've got.
There'll be time. Senator Chinnick.
I want to pick up on Senator Lyons' point regarding the or staff. I think that's a good language to include
Yeah.
because there are faculty that take administrative appointments, and there are many leaders at the University of Vermont that I know of, I'm sure at the VSC, that aren't necessarily faculty that would serve excellent in this role. Again, focused on the curricular mission of the universities.
How would the staff member at UVM get elected?
The
I
Senate-
faculty senate.
So it's the faculty senate, so you got this, the faculty senate would also choose that, yeah.
So it says, as I read it, and I'm familiar with this from my previous roles, that the faculty senate oversee the elections, and at the University of Vermont, that is one of the core functions of the faculty senate is to oversee fair elections for multiple posts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Who can vote in the other elections that you've overseen? Any staff?
It's defined in our charter for faculty senate posts, and that would probably need greater clarity, but for example, for the faculty senate, anybody with a 0.1 FTE or higher counts as a vote, so our part-time faculty get to vote for faculty senate presidents and so on.
But what about the staff? What about a faculty person that's admin staff? They don't vote.
There's a staff council, so that's where maybe Wendy Koenig might offer some additional clarity on how she would want to qualify that. I think if you model it after existing processes through additional bylaws that Senator Lyons has highlighted before, empower the university to pursue bylaws clarifications, that could work.
Need something.
We also need to change, if there is no such group for the state colleges, I'll work with St. James on how we might do that. And it might be that we need to wait a year where we say you shall change, you create this thing.
well, because we've already spoken with Wendy Koenig and Catherine Lavessier who are working together to perhaps implement something like that.
Oh, right,
Like,
on that piece with the,
You
yeah.
know, something like the Senate in the Vermont State College system. The urgency that I see about this addition is that in the Vermont State College system, the transition is occurring.
Right.
And in my
Good news and
it's
bad.
yeah, it's good news and bad news. But
Yeah.
if you're going to be changing everything, this is a good time to look at the governance as well.
I'm
So-
gonna call Wendy Koenig after this.
Gonna call you.
Yeah, I think that's the other. Actually, that would be helpful if you just reach out to her. I'm sure she's watching, I think, but, and we'll have Daphne set some time aside on Tuesday for this issue. Anything else right now? Do you feel like?
I feel good.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will have some testimony on Tuesday, and then we as a committee can decide where folks are. Thank you, Senator Perswick. Daphne, we let Ms. Jessica Boucher in. And this is our final bit of business today.
Oh, 7:03.
7:03, yeah.
You know how David's feeling?
This morning he didn't sound great.
Move it over here.
Um,
And he is not in the waiting room yet.
Sorry, you want to give her a quick email? That'd be great. So why don't we go offline the week after our